Willa Zanders didn't expect the man in the charcoal suit barking orders into his phone to be the CEO mostly because he looked like the kind of guy who'd own the building, not just work in it. "Tell Carter I don't want excuses, I want results," the man snapped, pacing across the marble-floored lobby like it owed him money. His voice was sharp, but his face, something about it made her pause. Strong jaw, dark hair, eyes like storm clouds. Intense. Way too intense for a Wednesday morning. Willa adjusted her chef's coat and tugged her crates of supplies toward the elevator, hoping he wouldn't notice her. No such luck. "You're blocking the elevator," he said without even looking at her. She turned, eyebrows raised. "And you're blocking the hallway." His eyes finally met hers. For a second he was clearly thrown. She wasn't sure if it was the attitude or that she wasn't scrambling to apologize. "I'm Zachary Vale," he said, straightening. "This is my building. Good for you, I'm catering your party," he blinked. "You're the chef, problem." "No," he stepped aside. "Go ahead." She pulled her supplies into the elevator. He followed. "Seriously," she muttered. He didn't answer until the doors shut. "I like to be involved in every part of my company's events, even hors d'oeuvres, especially the hors d'oeuvres." Willa rolled her eyes. "I hope you like truffle oil. The appetizer budget was ridiculous," he grinned. "That was intentional." She narrowed her eyes. "You just like throwing your money around, don't you? Is that a problem? I don't know. Depends if you're the kind of guy who tips in Rolexes." Zachary's laugh was low and unexpected. "You're not what I expected." "Good," she said. "I hate being predictable." When the doors opened, he followed her into the event floor, sleek, modern, all glass and steel with a skyline view that nearly knocked her breath out. The place practically screamed money. He watched her take it in. "First time catering for a corporate event." "No," she said. "Just the first time I've seen a building this expensive from the inside. You get used to it." Willa glanced at him. "I don't want to get used to it, I want to earn it." He looked at her, then really looked. "You're ambitious. And you're nosy." He smiled again, and she hated how good it looked on him. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of prep, inspection, and minor chaos. Zachary kept appearing, asking questions, tasting things, offering feedback that was actually helpful. By noon, Willa had to admit he wasn't just some rich guy with a controlling streak. He genuinely cared about the details. She was plating mini crab cakes when he leaned on the counter beside her. "You always this hands-on in the kitchen. You always this annoying in a suit," he chuckled. "You're fun. You're in my way." He didn't move. "You know, we're expecting over 200 people tonight. Investors, clients, board members, big night for the company. And you're trusting a girl with a food truck background to feed them." "I did my research." Willa froze. "You looked me up. I always vet the vendors." "That's a little smart," he cut in. "You've been running your own kitchen since you were 22. You bought that food truck with a loan no bank wanted to give you. You cook like someone who's starving to prove something." She stared at him. "You memorized my resume." It was impressive. She didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever said her story was impressive. Usually they just told her to find a more stable career. "So," he said, "what are you trying to prove?" "That I belong in rooms like this," she said before she could stop herself. Zachary nodded slowly, like he understood that more than she wanted him to. "Then I'm glad you're here," and just like that her heart did something stupid. The party was chaos. Perfectly organized chaos. Champagne flowed, laughter echoed across the rooftop, and Willa moved like a machine, directing servers, checking temps, adjusting garnishes. Zachary was everywhere, shaking hands, making speeches, charming everyone. But every so often, she'd catch him looking at her. Not just glancing, watching. By dessert, Willa had had enough. She stepped outside for air, leaning against the balcony rail. The skyline glittered around her like 1,000 stars on Earth. Zachary joined her less than a minute later. "Thought you disappeared." "I needed 5 seconds without someone asking me where the caviar went." He handed her a glass of champagne. "You earned it." She took it, eyeing him. "You always this generous with your compliments?" "No, just when I mean them," she sipped. "You're not what I expected either." "What was I supposed to be? Cold, arrogant, dismissive?" "I'm all those things before coffee," she laughed. Zachary turned to her. "You know, most people try to impress me." "I'm not most people," I noticed. The silence stretched. The lights of the city blinked below them. The buzz of music and voices faded into the background. "Willa," he said softly, "stay after." "What? After the party, don't leave yet," she hesitated. "Why?" "Because I want to talk to you." Without 100 people in suits between us, she looked at him. Looked past the perfect suit, the expensive watch, the powerful posture. There was something real in his eyes, something she wasn't expecting. "Okay," she said, "I'll stay." It was nearly midnight when the last guest left. Her staff was packing up, but Willa stayed behind just like she promised. Zachary found her standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out again. "I don't usually do this," he said, walking up beside her. "Do what?" "Ask women I barely know to stick around after corporate events." Her lips twitched. "Sure you don't," he laughed quietly. "Okay, I deserve that." She turned to him. "So, what did you want to talk about?" "I don't want to talk," he said. "I want to ask you something." Willa raised a brow. "Go on." "Can I take you to dinner?" She blinked. "As in a date?" "Yes. You're my client, not anymore. The event's over." She stared at him. "You're serious?" "I haven't been more serious all night." Her heart was pounding. "I don't date clients. And I don't ask people out twice, so say yes now or I'll never ask again." She laughed, shaking her head. "You are the most stubborn man I've ever met. And you're the most fearless woman I've ever met." So she looked at him, into the eyes of the man who owned half the skyline but still looked at her like she was the most interesting thing in the room. "Yes," she said. "Dinner sounds good." Willa stared at her reflection in the restaurant's mirrored wall, uncertain whether she looked like a woman on a date or someone who'd wandered into the wrong reservation. Her black blouse was clean, pressed, and a far cry from her usual chef's coat, but the candlelight bouncing off the linen tablecloths made her feel like she was wearing borrowed confidence. Zachary sat across from her, no tie tonight, 2 buttons undone, sleeves rolled just enough to hint that he wasn't always the man with the corner office. He looked completely at ease, like the linen napkins and wine pairings were an extension of him. "This place is stunning," Willa said, folding her menu. "I invested in it last year," he replied. "The chef used to run a kitchen in Copenhagen. He's a genius with sea base." She raised an eyebrow. "You took me to a place you own." Zachary leaned forward slightly. "I'd rather say I brought you somewhere I trust." The waiter arrived with a bottle already opened, pouring without asking. Willa watched the ritual, then turned back to Zachary. "So, what's the real reason you asked me here?" His brow lifted. "What makes you think there's more to it? You don't strike me as the type who dates casually. You're strategic, detail-focused, you pick your moments." He exhaled, then nodded. "You're right, I don't date much. When I do, it's because someone caught me off guard." Willa tilted her head. "And I did. You challenged me. Most people don't, and you didn't do it to prove anything. You just were yourself." She studied him. "You know, I almost didn't take the catering job." "Why?" "Because I figured a company like yours would be full of pretentious executives with zero appreciation for anything that didn't come with a brand label. And now, you're pretentious," she said, smiling into her glass, "but you care." "That's rare." The waiter returned with their starters. A delicate dish of scallops over parsnip puree was set in front of her, and Zachary's plate carried a tower of tuna tartare. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was good too good. It made her feel like she was stepping into a world that didn't have room for someone who once served empanadas out of a parked truck in a gas station lot. "So what's next for you?" he asked after a sip of wine. She blinked. "What do you mean, career-wise?" "You're clearly not content staying still." "I want my own restaurant," she said. "Nothing flashy, just mine, a place where the food speaks louder than the Daker." He nodded, thoughtful. "And what's stopping you? Capital, investors, finding the right space, take your pick." He leaned back. "If someone offered to back you, would you take it?" "That depends. Are they backing me because they believe in my vision or because they want their name on the window?" His lips curved into something close to admiration. "You don't compromise." "I compromise all the time. Just not on the things that matter." The main courses arrived. His was a bone in ribeye, hers a dish of roasted duck with blood orange glaze. She took the first bite and sighed. "I didn't think duck could taste like this. Chef Nicolaj doesn't believe in shortcuts." Willa glanced at Zachary. "Do you?" Not when something's worth the time. Their eyes locked. She looked away first. After dinner, they walked along the quiet sidewalk outside the restaurant. The night was cool, the city humming in the background. "Why did you really leave the event so late last night?" she asked. "You could have disappeared hours earlier." "I wanted to see how you handled pressure when no one was watching." She stopped walking. "You were testing me." "I was curious. You're different when you think no one's paying attention. Calmer, focused, but softer." "That feels a little invasive." He hesitated. "Maybe it was, but I wasn't trying to manipulate anything, Willa. I was trying to understand you." She crossed her arms. "You don't get to analyze people like their quarterly reports." "You're right." She turned to face him. "This," she gestured between them, "isn't going to work if you treat me like an acquisition." "I don't want to own you." "Then don't treat me like a project." His jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to." She took a breath. "You're used to being in control, I get it, but I don't need to be managed." "I need to be respected." Zachary nodded once. "Fair." She looked up at him, trying to read what was behind his eyes. "If you're looking for someone who fits into your schedule between board meetings and mergers, I'm not her." "I'm not looking for convenience." Willa raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you looking for?" He stepped closer. "Someone who doesn't flinch when I tell them the truth. Someone who calls me out when I cross a line. Someone who makes me want to be better." She didn't move. "That's a lot to expect from one person, maybe. But that's what I see when I look at you." She studied his face, trying to find any trace of calculation. There wasn't any. After a moment, she said, "If we do this, it has to be on equal footing." Agreed. No power games. None. "And if you ever try to buy me a 5-star kitchen to shut me up, I will walk." His mouth curved slightly. "I'll keep that in mind." They stood in silence, the city buzzing around them. "Do you want to come see the space I've been eyeing?" she asked suddenly. "Right now, no time like the present." He looked at her for a beat, then nodded. "Lead the way." As they walked down the block toward a quiet corner storefront with boarded-up windows and a faded for lease sign, Willa's pulse quickened not from nerves, but from something else. Possibility. She fished out the key she'd gotten from the realtor and pushed open the door. The inside was dusty, empty except for some old metal shelving and cracked tile, but the bones were good. She could feel it. Zachary walked in slowly, looking around. "You really see something here?" he asked. "I see everything here." He turned toward her. "Then let me help." She tensed. "Zachary, no strings, no ownership, just belief in you." Willa stared at him, her defenses rising and crashing all at once. "I don't want a charity." "This isn't charity, it's partnership, if you'll let it be." She looked around the space, then back at him. "I'll think about it." He nodded. "That's all I ask." Willa arrived at the construction site with her boots caked in dust and a blueprint tube under one arm. The morning light hit the old brick building just right, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. She pushed open the door, there was no lock yet, and stepped into the echoing space that would one day be her restaurant. 2 weeks had passed since Zachary offered to be her silent backer, and after 3 grueling meetings with lawyers, architects, and a painfully thorough financial advisor, she'd finally agreed. Not because she needed saving, but because she realized something difficult sometimes. The right kind of help didn't mean giving up control. It meant letting someone believe in you without asking for anything in return. She spread the plans across the counter that would eventually separate the dining room from the open kitchen. The smell of sawdust and fresh paint lingered in the air, and somewhere a drill buzzed to life. "You're early," Zachary's voice called from behind her. She didn't turn. "So are you." "I brought coffee," he said, walking in and handing her a paper cup. "Hazelnut, no sugar." She glanced at him. "You remembered. I pay attention." She took a sip, then pointed toward the back. "They're installing the walk-in fridge today." He leaned on the counter beside her, his sleeves rolled again, but this time they were dusted with drywall. I also saw the contractor arguing with the plumber out front." She groaned. "Please tell me it's not about the gas line again." "It is." "Fantastic. They'll work it out," he said. "They're just mad they underestimated you." She looked at him. "What makes you so sure?" "Because I've done it too." She was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "I'm trying not to take it personally, but it's hard when everyone assumes I need a man to figure out where to hang the fire suppression system." Zachary straightened. "They'll stop assuming once they see how you run this place. I plan to make it impossible to ignore. You already do." She didn't answer. Instead, she unrolled another sheet and pointed to the back left corner. "I'm thinking about putting a small chef's table here, only 4 seats. Reservation only. I want people to feel like they're part of the process." He studied the drawing. "Intimate, bold, you'll need a flexible menu though. I've got that covered. Seasonal ingredients, limited runs, no printed menus." He gave a short nod. "You're building more than a restaurant." She folded the plans. "I'm building a story." As the crew buzzed around them, Willa stepped out onto the sidewalk again, needing air. Zachary followed without speaking. They stood side by side, watching workers carry in stainless steel panels and lighting fixtures. "You know," she said after a moment, "I've never had anyone back me without asking for something in return." "Not really. You're not used to being chosen unless there's a catch." "Exactly." "Well," he said, "there's no catch with me." She looked at him sideways. "That's what makes me nervous." He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "I don't want to take anything from you, Willa. I just want to stand beside you while you build something incredible." She was about to respond when his phone rang. He checked the screen, frowned, then answered. "Vale." She stepped away to give him space, staring down the street at the bakery with the chipped awning she used to dream about renting. That dream had died fast when she saw the price tag. This one was alive and breathing. When he hung up, she noticed the tension in his shoulders. "Problem, investor drama," he said. "They're pushing back on a merger I've been negotiating for months." She hesitated. "Do you need to go?" "No," he said quickly. "This is more important." She raised an eyebrow. "Your $1 billion deal can wait. I've learned that some things don't come with second chances." She crossed her arms. "You've changed." He met her gaze. "You're changing me." The words hit her harder than she expected. The following week, she stood outside a high-rise in Midtown, her heart pounding. Zachary had invited her to a private dinner, just the two of them, no staff, no distractions. He hadn't said where, just sent a driver with an address. The doorman opened the door before she could knock. "Miss Zanders, he's expecting you." She stepped into a penthouse that didn't feel like a home, it felt like an art gallery. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and in the center of the room sat a table set for 2 beside a low, burning fireplace. Zachary appeared from the kitchen, wearing no jacket, just a black dress shirt rolled to the elbows and an apron tied around his waist. She blinked. "You cooked." "I tried," she laughed. "Should I be nervous?" "Probably." They sat down, and he poured her a glass of wine that tasted more expensive than anything she'd ever served. The dish was simple pan-seared halibut with citrus glaze and roasted fennel, but it was surprisingly good. "Where did you learn to cook?" "I didn't," he said. "I watched your videos online and followed the one with the least amount of fire hazards." She stared at him. "You watched my videos? All of them?" She shook her head, caught between disbelief and something warmer. "You're full of surprises." "I'm just trying to keep up." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It carried weight, a quiet understanding that whatever had started between them was no longer just flirtation. It was real, tangible. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "I know this is fast. I know we come from different worlds. You think. But I also know I haven't stopped thinking about you since the moment you challenged me in that elevator." She looked him dead in the eye. "Then don't stop." There was heat in his gaze now, but not just desire, admiration, respect, something deeper. "I won't," he said. The next morning, Willa woke up in his bed, sunlight spilling across the sheets. She sat up slowly, the city stretching wide through the glass beside her. Zachary was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, reading a file. "Work never ends, huh?" she said, voice groggy. He turned, smiling softly. "Some things are worth interrupting it for." She wrapped a sheet around herself and patted over. "You always this smooth in the morning." "Only when I wake up next to someone who makes me forget what time it is." She leaned down and kissed him, slow and certain. Whatever storm was coming, whether from his side of the business world or hers, they'd face it together. The first reservation list for Willa's restaurant filled in less than 3 hours. She stared at the email from the booking platform, barely breathing, then let out a shaky laugh that echoed through the unfinished dining room. The last of the chairs had arrived that morning, sleek but warm, walnut wood with burnt orange leather cushions, and the kitchen had passed inspection 2 days ahead of schedule. Every surface gleamed, every detail exactly the way she'd imagined during those long nights drawing layouts by hand with a pencil she chewed to ruin. Zachary walked in without a sound, holding a cloth-wrapped bundle she hadn't expected him to carry himself. "Your chef's knives," he said, setting them on the counter. "I thought they were still at my apartment." "They were. I picked them up this morning, figured you'd want them here when you start prep." She undid the wrap carefully. Each knife was resting in its slot, freshly sharpened. Her hands hovered over the handles like they were sacred. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know." Her phone buzzed again. Another notification, this one from a food critic with 1 million followers, asking for a table opening night. She set the phone down. "This is happening." Zachary leaned against the counter but didn't reach for her. "I never had any doubt," she turned to him. "I did, every day." "That's what makes you dangerous," he said. "You build anyway." She didn't know what to say to that. Instead, she walked to the windows and looked out at the street. The awning was up now, with her name in brushed bronze lettering. Not the food truck brand, not a borrowed identity, just her. He joined her a moment later. "I have something to ask you," he said. She tensed slightly. "If you're about to propose, don't." "Not today," he laughed, genuine and surprised. "Not yet, but I did want to ask you something else." She faced him, arms crossed. "Go on." "I want to host the company's next board dinner here," she blinked. "Seriously? You said you wanted this place to mean something. Let's start with something that terrifies both of us." She considered it. "You know they'll expect white tablecloths and a wine list longer than the Constitution. Then give them something better. Give them you." She inhaled slowly. "You're not worried I'll offend them?" "I'm counting on it." The grin that broke across her face surprised even her. She hadn't expected to feel this light standing across from someone who once saw her as a vendor. But now, he was looking at her like she was the only one in the room with power. "I'll do it," she said. "But only if you sit at the end of the table and keep your mouth shut about the risotto method." He held up both hands. "Deal." The first night came faster than she was ready for. The kitchen pulsed with controlled chaos. Her team moved like a unit, no one speaking unless necessary. The front of house sparkled with candles and fresh-cut herbs, and at precisely 7 o'clock the first guests arrived. Zachary was already seated when she emerged from the kitchen. He wore a charcoal blazer, no tie, and his watch glinted under the pendant lighting. He didn't call out to her, didn't wave. He just watched as she moved through the room, completely in her element. Midway through the second course, a guest called her over. He was older, silver-haired, with a face that gave nothing away. "You're the chef." "I am. This duck is the best I've had in a decade." She inclined her head. "Thank you." "Who trained you?" "No one." He blinked. "You're self-taught. I'm kitchen-taught." "There's a difference." The man laughed once, short and surprised. "Your name's already making the rounds." She didn't bother asking which rounds. As she turned to leave, Zachary caught her arm gently. "You're crushing this," she whispered back. "I know." Later, after the final dessert was cleared and the last guest stepped out into the night, she collapsed into the booth across from Zachary and kicked off her shoes under the table. "I think I blacked out during the scallop course." He handed her a flute of champagne. "You didn't." She took a sip. "This is surreal." He watched her for a beat, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, square box. She stared at it. "If that's a ring, I'm going to throw it across the room," he chuckled. "It's not." She opened it slowly, revealing a thin gold chain with a tiny copper spoon charm. "What is this?" "The first utensil you ever used professionally," he said. "I asked your sous chef." She picked it up carefully, running her thumb over the smooth metal. "You remembered." "I don't forget things that matter." She slid it on, then leaned back. "You're not what I expected. You've said that before." "No, I mean I thought this would fade, the spark. The attention, but you've only gotten more real." He reached for her hand. "That's because you've never asked me to pretend." She squeezed his fingers. You know, I never wanted to fall for someone like you. I never planned on falling at all. They sat in silence, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. Then he said, I want to invest in your next location. She blinked. Already, you've built something alive. It won't stay quiet for long. She considered it, then nodded. When I'm ready, I'll wait, she smiled. That's new for you. He leaned in, brushing his lips against her temple. So are you. As the night deepened and the last candle flickered out, she rested her head on his shoulder, letting herself breathe for the first time in what felt like years. She had her restaurant, she had her name on the door. And she had the one man who'd seen her fire without trying to tame it. Together, they weren't just building something, they were becoming something, not out of convenience, out of choice. The day of the city's annual culinary syndicate, Gala arrived with a storm forecast and a guest list full of skeptics. Willa adjusted the neckline of her midnight blue dress in the backseat of the black car Zachary had sent, her nerves sharper than any blade in her prep kitchen. Remind me why I agreed to this, she muttered. Zachary glanced over, black tux crisp, his cufflinks matte onyx. Because you were nominated for new chef of the year. And because if you didn't show up, I'd have to accept the award on your behalf, and I'd probably say something wildly inappropriate. She shook her head. I don't want to win just because people are impressed I didn't burn the place down in the first 6 months. You're not getting recognized for surviving, he said. You're getting recognized because in 6 months your waitlist is longer than restaurants that have been here for a decade. She drew in a breath. I still feel like someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me I don't belong. They won't, he said. I've already paid off the security, she laughed, tension breaking. You're impossible. That's why you like me. The venue shimmered with chandeliers and velvet walls, but Willa didn't flinch. The room was filled with industry titans, some of whom had once turned her down for jobs she'd begged for. Now they stood sipping champagne, glancing her way with newly polite expressions. One woman approached her near the entrance, a trim brunette with a reputation for being ruthless. You're Willa Zanders. I tried to get a reservation 3 times. Willa met her gaze. Try 4, it's a lucky number. The woman blinked, then laughed. I like you, Zachary leaned in. You're terrifying when you want to be. That's why you like me, she echoed. The ceremony began, speeches droned, and Willa's foot tapped against the marble floor until her name was called. The applause hit her like a wave, and she walked to the stage, heart pounding, palms dry only because she'd refused to wear gloves no matter how cold it was. She accepted the award, a sleek glass sculpture shaped like a flame, and stepped to the mic. I don't have a speech, she began. Because I didn't think they'd give this to someone who didn't go to culinary school, didn't grow up in a restaurant family, didn't have the right contacts or the right pedigree. But I did have one thing, a belief that flavor doesn't come from status, it comes from struggle. And I've had plenty of that. The crowd was silent, listening. So if you're someone who's ever been told you're too small, too loud, too ambitious, or just not enough, you're exactly what this industry needs. Thank you. Thunderous applause followed her off stage. Later, tucked into a corner near the bar, she let herself breathe. You made half the room cry, Zachary said beside her. I almost cried myself. He touched her wrist. You didn't. You stood there and owned it. She turned toward him. You helped me get here. No, he said, voice low. I stood beside you while you ran. You carried it. Her fingers closed around his lapel. I love you. His eyes darkened. Say that again. She didn't hesitate. I love you. I love how you challenge me, how you never try to fix me. I love that you see me, every version of me, and you don't flinch. He took her face in his hands, brushing his thumb along her cheek. I love you, Willa. I knew it the night you told me I was nosy. She laughed, then leaned into his kiss, slow and certain beneath the crystal lights. The next morning, the award sat on the restaurant's host stand, polished clean, angled perfectly for every guest to see. Willa stood at the stove, her sleeves rolled, a new special on the burner and her staff laughing behind her. Zachary walked in through the back, carrying a cardboard box. What's that? She asked. He pulled out a plain wooden sign. New branding for the chef's table. You said you wanted guests to feel like they were part of the process. She read the words burned into the wood, the Zanders experience. She blinked. You had this made, hand-carved. By someone who owed me a favor. She looked up at him, eyes glassy. You remembered. I always do. She stepped forward, took the sign and hung it above the table herself. That night they hosted a private dinner for a group of young culinary students. Willa sat with them between courses, sharing stories, answering questions, laughing louder than she ever had in public. Zachary watched from the edge of the room, arms folded, a rare softness on his face. When she caught his eye, he nodded once. She got it. When the last student left, she walked over and pulled him into the kitchen. I want you to see something, she said. She opened a drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it carefully. It was a sketch, a new floor plan. Second location, he asked. Yes. Where? Paris, he blinked. You're serious? I've already found a location, but I don't want to do it alone. Zachary didn't hesitate. Then we'll do it together, she grinned. You're going to learn French, he groaned. I barely survived your fennel training. She kissed him, long and sure. Then we're even. Years later, the Paris location opened to critical acclaim. Willa stood on the balcony of their apartment above the restaurant, watching the Seine glow in the twilight. Inside, Zachary was setting the table for dinner, sleeves rolled, no tucks, just a man completely at ease in the life they'd built together. She walked in, barefoot and smiling. Do you still remember the first thing I ever said to you? He pretended to think. Something about me blocking the elevator? No, she said, wrapping her arms around his waist. Something about you being annoying in a suit. He kissed her forehead. Still true. She leaned her head against his chest. Still love you anyway, and she always would.